Hello, everyone. Hello. Thanks for whoever's joined in so far. Thank you. And wish you all a happy new year. First of all, I'd like to start off with that. And here's hoping for a better and a much healthier 2021. And the reason I say that is because this past year we've realized the importance of living healthy lives, of getting fitter more than ever. And but while we did that, at the same time, parallelly, a lot of fitness centers were forced to shut down. Major running and sporting events were cancelled. That was there for the good part of the year. So, like most other industries, the fitness space as well leaned heavily on virtual training to pivot to make their clients more motivated to and to retain staff as much as possible. So, so what does the future look like? Future for the fitness industry look like in this scenario? So that's something that to answer that we have on board our experts to introduce you, all of you, to them. First, we have Shvetambari Shetty. She is the fitness expert at CureFit, and she's also recently authored a book called Get Moving. And then we have Sarvesh Shashi. He is the founder of Sarva, which has yoga and meditation centers all across India. And we have with us Ashish, who is the business director at Procam International. And Procam, as you know, perhaps know, it's the event organizer for all for major marathons of India. That's Tata Mumbai Marathon, Airtel Delhi Half Marathon. All of these have been organized by Procam. So, so thank you all of you for being here today. And
Thank you.
kickstart things. First, before we go into looking at the future, we would like to know what the present scenario is like. Only then can we can perhaps understand the future better. So, would you like to start us off with what are the fitness trends that you have your eye out on? Sectors in your own verticals. So we have training, we have yoga, we have running. So the sectors in these sectors, what have been the most profitable so far? Shweta, would you like to start us off?
Sure, sure. Happy to. So, happy New Year, of course, to everyone out here. You know, the current situation, if I may say so, almost seems very normal, except for a few of us, of course, who are still stuck at home, like myself, because I'm a new mom, right? But honestly, it seems quite normal because we have reopened all our centers across all the cities, and it's amazing to see that people are actually coming back to these centers to get their workout. Right, we have a good number still doing online, but a good number of them are actually stepping into the physical centers. Yes, all the sanitization, the distancing, and everything is taken care of in the best ways possible. So it's amazing to see people are doing their yoga, doing their training, strength training. A lot of people running and cycling. That's what I've noticed every time I stepped out for a run or a cycle ride. So it is actually coming back to normal. And what is really beautiful to see is that more and more people are taking to fitness. Right, I can actually see a lot of beginners starting from home, especially, and now willing to step out and step it up a notch. And I'm sure Sarvesh and Ashish will agree with me because they're probably seeing the same trend.
Sarvesh, what do you think? Could you shine a light on the yoga and mindfulness aspect of it?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me with this esteemed group of panelists, Shweta and Ashish, and everybody else at the Hindu. And hi to everybody who's watching all of us. Wish you all a happy new year as well. Well, I think one thing that the pandemic has taught all of us is to look at health holistically. And I call it as the three in yoga, you call it asana, which is what you do with your body, pranayama, which is what you do with your breathing and mind, and the other one is pratyahara, which is what you consume, which is your food. And I think people have started realizing that all three are equally important, and there is nothing one is greater than the other. Because and it's as much as it is heartwarming to see a lot of people, irrespective of age, gender, kind of places they are living in, they've taken to online a lot better than what India as a country would have otherwise kind of adopted digitally, which is very, very heartwarming to see. And more important, I think parents have started realizing that, okay, now we've taken so much time to get into fitness, wellness, health, etc. I will not do the same with my child. They've started telling their children that, hey, listen, it's you need to start off very early right now and look at it holistically. Like people who were typically doing 5 minutes of breathing sessions with us have requested us to make it 20 minutes of breathing, where we have told them that, hey, listen, we've said the same thing pre-pandemic, but I think the realization has happened post-pandemic. So I think right now, health is more looked at holistically. And like Shweta said, that people have started coming to this a lot more. And I think that's the positive side of the pandemic, right? As much as it has done a lot of negative to all of us and our families, near dear ones, etc. The positive side is there is a lot of fight and acceptance that has happened because of the pandemic. And I think we are all grateful for that.
Ashish, would you like to continue?
Yeah. Well, firstly, good evening and happy New Year to everyone who's attending this session. And pleasure being with Shweta, with Sarvesh, with Shweta, and all of you. It's absolutely lovely, being here at the start of the year, talking about a subject that is just so important. So our observations as ProCam, my personal observations are no different from what Shweta and Sarvesh have already mentioned. I think clearly this phase of the last many months has been in one way challenging because organizations, various institutions have had to reinvent themselves, find new ways to keep their consumers, their customers engaged. That said, I think the whole fitness orientation in people has only multiplied. And there are different triggers for it. On one end, there may be people who may say that because of the pandemic, I want to, build immunity. Now, that may be their trigger. While somebody else may say, look, I don't have as much commute as I used to have earlier. I have a lot more time on hand. So I might as well go for a longer walk and a run and, whatever else. Never mind, whatever be the reasons or the triggers. I think the truth is that many more people over the last, many months of the pandemic have joined this whole sort of fitness orientation. They are looking after themselves. The sort of emphasis that we are seeing on people with their food habits, their nutrition habits, influence on their children to actually go out there and, just take simple walks and so on has really improved and increased, which is a great trend.
Exactly what the two of them said, right? But the beauty here is that we've just about started. I think all these years, fitness was really a luxury in India, and we were constantly pushing, and all of us have started from scratch with literally nothing and very few people coming to our sessions and classes, right? But here's the thing. I think from here on, everyone has had a difficult phase, fitness being one of them. Here on, I think fitness is just going to go booming now. Like everybody is going to be trying to, incorporate some habit, a sport or anything, right? Anything to do with just getting fitter and healthier. And this is where we start. This is where our industry really is going to take off for the next, God knows how many years, forever, mostly should be. But yeah, so I guess the pandemic, like Sarvesh said, was not good. But the positive side of it is that it's just going to create a more healthier, fitter population.
So all of you mentioned different ways that that you had to adapt to the new normal, as it's called. So what were the few ways? One of the things that I've noticed personally was that virtual training became popular. Could you tell me more about that? Because you yourself have been coaching many people virtually right now, isn't it?
Yeah, so for us, we were primarily like running, or even Sarvesh's like yoga and meditation, right? Even for us, we were mostly offline, right? We had different type of classes at different centers across different cities and all of that. But there's something that we had done back in 2017 was recorded a lot of do-it-yourself workouts, like DIY workouts, and we had placed it on the CureFit app. Now, we had quite a big number, of these videos, and they were consumed by our existing members every time they traveled or they didn't come into a center. But the consumption was obviously very limited and it was free of cost. Now, what happened as soon as the centers shut down? We immediately opened up these sessions and we kind of started, promoting it and marketing it and etc. And people consumed it in large numbers because that was the only option. So we understood that this is going to be here for a while. So we started doing a lot of shoots at home with our, trainers. So it wasn't like we could actually go into any center and shoot because everything was under lockdown. So we used all the sessions we had, and then we started shooting at respective trainers' homes, and we put those sessions out there because online was the only medium and the consumption was phenomenal. Like even right at this moment, despite the centers being open, the consumption is extremely high. Like I think we have about 500,000 sessions being done on a daily basis, right? Like we currently have close to, or rather over 100,000 subscribers on the online platform, right? The CureFit app, the online workouts. And because we understood the demand was so good for online workouts, and like Sarvesh said, for us in India to have, just simply taken up to online is amazing, right? Because we're not even so much the offline people to go and work out. So we actually opened up even in the US. The app has also open in the US, and we have a different segment there, different trainers and all of that. But our online presence today is also in the US, and it's definitely picking up well. Definitely a little slow, but picking up very well. So it is what it is. It is online, and I think a lot of us are still going to stick to doing workouts at home for quite a while to come.
Would you guys agree that would you call it an add-on to your existing business model, or do you think online training by itself will work as a long-term business model? So, Sarvesh, I would like to ask you this question specifically because that's something that Sarva is doing with both Diva and Sarva, right? It's hosting online sessions day in and day out. So, what would you
Yeah.
have to say about?
Yeah, for us, I think, I mean, like Shweta said, I think CureFit, and I've always said this very openly, that in the business of wellness, more the merrier. Because, I can't be selfish and say only I can make somebody healthy. That will be catastrophic for the entire industry, right? So I think what CureFit as a brand has done in India has genuinely kind of catapulted the whole awareness that one should have towards holistic living, right? Whether eating well, doing mindfit, doing meditations, and cult doing the whole strength training, flexibility, mobility, etc. It's been phenomenal for us as a brand. Both Sarva and Diva, we're a completely yoga first, yoga only kind of platform, and digital was always a part of our plan in terms of launching it. We were in fact launching it on June 21st, 2020. Little did we know that like everybody said, COVID will be our chief digital transformation officer, and we kind of fast tracked the growth of digital, and we launched it on March 22nd. And we've always wanted to be, because India is the birthplace of yoga, and over the last 4 months, and this is something that we'll probably put out, we've produced over 1,440 hours of yoga and meditation content in the last 4 months, and that's like a significant amount. If I have to put it in parallel, you have one unique workout to do every single day, 3 days a week for the next 8 years. So that's the amount of content we've been managed to produce, and we did this in 5 countries. And sitting from home, we were able to do it across 5 countries. We put together a document, like Shweta was saying, instructors. We kind of structured it in a certain way, and we managed to do that. So, and the amount of results that we've seen in the online world, and we've completed over 5 billion minutes of live classes. The results that we've seen in this has been very, very overwhelming, and hence we've decided that we will focus to be digital first, content first only. And this is something that we've always said, that we want to be the Netflix of yoga. Put out content, do it yourself, whether it's for a 6-year-old, a 50-year-old, or a 70-year-old. We wanted to make yoga fun, cool, entertaining, but keeping the authenticity in mind. So this digital transformation that we've gone through has totally allowed us to do this. And we don't have boundaries today. That we were present in 32 cities pre-pandemic. Of course, a lot of these studios will never open again, and we're very cognizant about that. But in retrospect, digital has genuinely made us reach multiple countries, right? I mean, in terms of meditation, and we've been seeing traction, especially in our mindfulness content, very, very high, because people have started realizing that fitness is above your shoulders too, and not just below your shoulders, which is your head. So it's been overwhelming, and I think we would continue to be a digital. We would continue to be a part of the digital first, content first as a brand and as a company. Of course, Diva Yoga will have a few centers, but that will largely be for brand, physical. We'll do shoots there, etc. But we will be a digital first and content first company.
And this is likely to continue well beyond 2021.
Yeah. By all means.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of for us, Jennifer Lopez is one of our investors, right? The whole idea of us kind of getting her on board was to go global and to go digital, right? There's no point in Jennifer investing if we're going to be using her to promote a studio in Bandra for all you can. So in terms of what we want to do with her is purely take this whole thing digital and go global with it. So it will definitely continue. And like I said, we will be digital first, content first as a brand.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be another business. It's not going to be just a part of the offline world. It'll definitely be a business model on its own, which will have, the whole revenue and all of that coming from it. So,
and that's exactly what we are also seeing, right? Digital transformation, Sarvesh spoke about. Clearly, that's at the heart of a lot of the growth for businesses in this space. And we believe the key is to leverage digital in a manner that whatever you do now actually adds to it later when life comes back to normal. You hardly want to be in a place where whatever you've done now was a stopgap and this all goes away. And I think that's where our feeling is that most organizations will have to really think hard, innovate. I mean, for example, in our case, of course, the Tata Mumbai Marathon, the Airtel Delhi Half Marathon, the TCS World 10K, Bengaluru, etc., everything else that we do gets large participation on the streets, right? I mean, 55,000 people in Mumbai, 40,000 people in Delhi. That wasn't possible this year. That said, the question that, we attempted to answer, and then we answered it partly, and then it's been a bit of evolution for us, is how do you now use this current situation? How do you use technology, digital, to be able to get more and more new users? Because there is no limitation of a physical event, right? I mean, in our case, of course, ultimately, there are only 55,000 people that can run the Tata Mumbai Marathon because that's what the physical infrastructure allows. But now there is no such limitation. You can have people from around the country, around the world actually sort of coming and becoming a part of it. And that's exactly what happened with some of our initiatives. And I can share some data as we go during this session. And the other was, very interestingly, how can you get more and more people from, not only the host town, because when you do the Airtel Delhi Half Marathon or the TCS World 10K in Bangalore, you get dominant participation from the host city for obvious reasons, because that city really feels for that initiative. Now, how do you use digital to actually get people from outside? So I think it's been a year of learning, a year of evolution for us. We had upwards of about 50,000 people that participated in our virtual initiative. And that was actually kicked off even before the pandemic, when last year at the TMM in January of 2020, we introduced in a very small way a pilot which we called as Run as One, which was really about you can run from wherever you are as one with TMM. That was the whole idea. And we had 3,000 people in a very controlled experiment. But over the period of the last 7-8 months, everything that we've done, we've had upwards of 50,000 people actually paying, participating. And that's an indication of, the sort of content and the sort of experiences people are looking for.
Ashish, something that I would like to add here is that, like you mentioned, that people need to feel for that initiative, and that happens especially especially to people who belong to those cities. But running is as an event is all about coming together, people coming together. Often it's for a larger cause or for a charity of some sort. So how do you bring that level of engagement even when people are running from different cities or from their own neighborhoods, when people are not there together to witness the power of togetherness, of unity while running?
I'll give an example, on this point, Shweta, which was about, an initiative that we launched on the 15th of August called the Sunfeast India Runners One. And that sort of exactly addresses what you just asked. Uh, this was about running. It was about clocking kilometers. It was an invitation to people around the country to participate. But very importantly, it was about, funds going to one single cause, which was livelihoods. That, of course, has been significantly impacted all over the world, but closer home in India. So, this initiative became a way for people to say whether I walk half a kilometer, 1 kilometer, or I run 42 kilometers or more. Ultimately, anything that I'm doing is going towards the cause of livelihoods. Of course, I'm sure different organizations, different platforms can choose different causes at different points of time. But that we felt was one idea launched on the 15th of August that brought the nation together. We were fortunate to have raised upwards of 3 crores of charity with Give India. So you're absolutely right. I think anything which is participative sport, which is not spectatorial in nature, I think it just allows so much of this charity, social coming together aspects, which if we are able to think about it, I'm sure we can find ways to leverage that.
Yeah.
And so this question is for all of you because we've been talking about the digital transformation, but for a young fitness startup, what are the risks involved that you would tell them to be careful of as people who have so much experience in the field? What are the risks involved in this digital transformation?
Well, uh, in digital, the risks are very minimum, right? Because you really don't need a massive space, unlike the offline world. Okay, you don't need any fancy equipments because a lot of it is done using a good smartphone or a laptop, right? So honestly, a lot of the personal trainers who have been doing a lot of digital sessions even in the past were here for the win in the last 7, 8, 10 months, because digital was all over, right? So for a digital setup, you don't need anything fancy. The investment is minimum. You just need to ensure your programming is great, right? And you are able to give your client good results so that there is ample stickiness and retention. But apart from that, you really need a very small setup. Like all of us, like we've been doing sessions on Zoom, we've been doing sessions through Instagram, through Facebook. And I think what I have also realized is we've been on social media for so long now, so many years, but we never really did sessions on social media because everything was about being physically present in a place. But today we are enjoying doing the sessions in the digital space, and I think it's simple, easy, and anybody who wants to kickstart their career in fitness, I think a great way to start is digital, right? I'm sure Sarvesh and Ashish will probably agree and may have other thoughts as well. But yeah, I would recommend for anyone to start off digital first.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I completely agree with Shweta in from all the points that she said, because all you need if you want to start off a digital, if you want to start off business and have it digital, and it's in the fitness space, all you need is a Zoom account, right? I mean, today you just need to download Zoom and you can start off. But of course, one can speak about what you need for scale, what you need for, then the people, the hiring of the right team, the product, like she said, programming of the classes, and then looking at results, and then ensuring you're engaged, etc. All of that happens. But I think the first step for everybody who wants to become an entrepreneur in the fitness space has, I think the pandemic has made it extremely, uh, I wouldn't say easy is the right word, but definitely doable, right? All you need is a Zoom account and you can start off. You can, a lot of people today say, hey, you know what, I want to train with you. But 8 months ago, I say, oh, your gym is too far away. Oh, I can't come to you. But today you can open a Zoom account and you can start training. And then today, if you're able to monetize for it, well and good. And then from there, you kind of move on from there, building a great team, getting the right product, the right kind of content, etc., will come on. But to begin with, the capital is absolutely pretty much nothing. If you want a few thousand people in it, you pay 5,000 rupees extra to Zoom, and they're allowing you to kind of take a larger group. But I think one thing that all instructors I'm sure Shweta and everybody would have noticed, is that they've started realizing, oh my God, I'm probably earning 6 times more today than taking 20, 30 people in Zoom. Then, and that's actually a problem for employers like us. We're like, oh my God. But what's also been happening is the loyalty that these instructors have shown to their respective brands is immense. Even though they had the opportunity to kind of go out there and take these sessions, they said, hey, there is this organization that took care of me in the last 6, 9 months. Even though I have a phenomenal opportunity that has come up, clients are saying, I'll directly come to you, etc. They said, hey, listen, I will not leave this. So all of this has really, even as employers, for all of us, has made it very clear about who's our the right team, what do we need to kind of invest on in terms of our teams, etc. But I think starting off a digital business is tricky in its own way. But I think from a health and fitness standpoint, it's definitely made it very accessible and doable for a lot of individual fitness instructors out there who can generally come onto a platform and kind of doing it. But yes, to scale it up, etc., will have its own challenges. But I think that's step two. But as step one, it certainly made it more accessible and doable for a lot of people.
Yeah, Shweta, I would add that maybe the question is not so much about the risks with digital. Maybe it is really about how do you leverage digital, in your context. Maybe that's what it is, and clearly organizations are learning there. I think one of the barriers or one of the mindsets has been that how can health and wellness go digital? Because it's a bit of a contradiction in some senses, but it isn't, right? I mean, I think during the pandemic we've all learned that you can leverage digital if curated well in the right manner, to suit your business goals. Of course, Sarvesh and Shweta have already spoken about programming and how you design it to suit your context. But it's important to design it in a manner that it adds to what you do. Like I was saying earlier, it shouldn't be redundant, a year from now when life comes back to, so to speak, normal. That's an important aspect.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, like you rightly said, it should not become a stopgap arrangement of sorts, right? Then you've put in 9 months of hard work into creating something stopgap, and when things get back to normal, you again discard it and then get a new team and say, hey, now we're back to this kind of doing, etc., etc. I think you need to look at something long term.
Yeah, and Sarvesh, the other reason why I would not use the word risk is because of the flexibility that's there in digital to course correct.
Yes,
It
yeah,
isn't
by all
one of
means.
those businesses that you've gone down a path now, it'll take you a while to change course. I mean, you can dynamically do that.
Yeah, by all means, absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure I'm in the, maybe I might be in the minority here, but for me, because a lot of my work also involves being digital all the time, for different things, so there's this whole digital hangover that I do not want to look at screens anymore. I don't want to watch another live or another. Probably I might be in the minority. I'm so sorry for saying this, but how do you think, given that there is this hangover, do you think that the fitness tech space, how can it pivot to accommodate people like me, people who are tired of probably watching a screen?
Yeah,
Running.
Shweta can take it. Yeah, I was just going to say in terms of, there is in life, and this is a very yogi answer, so apologies to everybody. Everything needs a balance, right? I mean, in Malayalam, there is a saying that Amridam Adhigamayal Vesham, which is Amrit is nothing but that gives you life. It increases lifespan in people. And even if Amrit becomes a lot more, it can turn into poison. So not just digital detox or digital screen being at this one, but I think it's one's individual hands to decide how much of what they need to do. And like you said, Shweta, in terms of you're not a minority, but even as instructors, right? Shweta will relate, I will relate. Even we don't want to be taking live sessions on a Zoom call like 8 hours a day. It's not about not wanting to. It's just because we also want our time. We would probably go out for a run. Yesterday I went out for a run walk. There is running, there's walking, there's cycling. You can go out on a terrace and walk. You need to know the right mix. Overdoing anything is not going to do you any good, right? And this is not just in fitness. Even if you're overdoing anything in life, it's not going to do you any good. So I think you'll need to know what your likes and dislikes are, I mean, if you're a 60% online person, 40% offline, like I'm sure Shweta would be seeing this, a lot of their members would probably do 3 days coming to the studio and the center and 3 days online. There's a lot of people who probably will be doing that. And they have different reasons for it. One could be, I want to meet my friend. One could be, I want to get out of my house. One could be, I just, kind of like the environment with a community of people. Different things, like, Ashish said that, pre-pandemic, they did a test and 3,000 people came in it. And then when they did it on August 15th, 50,000 people came. It's purely about knowing the right mix, knowing the right balance. So I think you stroke the individual is in a much better place to understand what he or she needs. As long as they accept that fitness is a lifestyle and not a 1 hour practice. When somebody asked me how many times a week should I do yoga, I asked them, how many times do you shower in a week? Thankfully, they said 7. And I said, that many times you need to do yoga as well. So be it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really about what you enjoy, Shweta. I mean, for everyone who's probably feeling the same way as you and wants like a digital detox and hence not wanting to log in for a workout, like Sarvesh said, I would definitely say step out. A, we're probably stuck indoors working. B, we're stuck in front of a computer and a laptop and we don't have physical meeting rooms anymore and we don't meet people for meetings, right? So one of the things I also do, agreeing with the Sarvesh, is that I step out for a run, right? And it just feels liberating, to say the least, right? And I don't think anybody can stop you from stepping out for a walk or a run, right? And you mask fairly well, and you wear the right mask if you're running, like a sports mask, or you probably don't wear one. But that's the right thing to do. You don't necessarily have to be working out using a computer or a phone, and that totally makes sense. Sometimes it just is too much to be in front of a
not just working out, even working, right? Not just working out,
yeah,
even
exactly,
working too long in front of a computer is not.
Yeah. So just walking around, looking at the green around you, or if you don't have too much green, then probably just the buildings. But just looking at something else apart from so much of this screen, I think is liberating. So that's what I do. And I would recommend the same: step out for a run.
There's always, as I see it, two sides, right, to anything, double-edged sword, call it what you will, where, of course, on one end, we say that let the power be in the hands of the consumer. Now, in this case, literally, the power is coming in the form of a device, which is with you. But you know what? There is a downside to it. There is a balance that each of us need to strike in terms of how do we want to leverage that power or use that power. The truth is, everything, many things are, digitally enabled now, including business, in the sense that whether you like it or not, you may get a proposal on WhatsApp. You may get a quotation from someone on WhatsApp. Now, you didn't do that, a year ago, 3 years, 5 years ago. But now that's the way it is. And, there's an expectation that you have to respond to that. So I think the choice is in our hands and we'll need to draw that line.
So moving away from the digital workouts, can we also talk about how outdoor workouts are faring today? Is that something that is seeing more demand? Would you say that?
Shweta's the
And
boss.
maybe Ashish should take this.
Shweta and
No,
Ashish,
because
yeah, both of them.
outdoor, I personally feel as long as there's ample amount of distancing and the things required, sanitization, distancing, and all of that, right? You can just work out indoors or outdoors together. Outdoors, of course, just gives you more space and so much more, like I said, liberating and beautiful. But if you're still working out in a group, right, it all depends on how you space yourself and how you distance yourself. That's all. And outdoor workouts are again for certain type of people. I don't think everybody is a fan of outdoors, right? But yes, it is something that people are doing a lot more. But like I said, I think Ashish will be the best person to answer this question.
Yeah, so my lens would be largely from a running lens, and what we have really seen is, and that's not only true to the pandemic. I think the flexibility of running, where you don't need much. I mean, all you need is a pair of shoes, and you need to wear your apparel and go out there. There isn't really much needed, and that's something that we have seen as the main trigger for people to take up running, because it's easy to do. I can start tomorrow morning if I make up my mind. That said, in the first few months of the pandemic, of course, there was fear, There was caution, people didn't want to step out. And even during that phase, during April, May, particularly part of June, we did things where people had to simply, do some activity at home. We ran a program called as Hope Runs Within in the month of May. And even that found, traction. But as months progressed, we've seen people go out. To give you an example, we did the Airtel Delhi Half Marathon in November of 2020, which was an elite race in Delhi. And then, amateurs were participating virtually from all over the country, all over the world. Around September, October, we started our, outreach in terms of talking to people, talking to runners, and sort of saying, look, are you getting out? And there's an interesting data point that came up in September, which said 82% of the people had already started their training around August, September, which means they may not have been part of large groups, like the run clubs and so on. Maybe they are just training on their own, but they had already started that. So I think outdoor clearly, and particularly during the pandemic where you want to be out there, maybe on your own, it helps.
Do you guys mind if we take 2 questions that have come in?
Sure.
Yeah,
Ashish,
we should.
this one is for you. The first one, it says, how does online training work for running?
So the training is, of course, a much wider term. And I would want to pick up a part of that and respond to it, which is that if you use online, you use digital from a point of view of virtual running. The example I was giving, that over the last many months, we've had 50,000 plus people participate in our virtual running initiatives. That's because you're really providing an opportunity for some amount of discipline to come in, right? And a lot of people, for example, one of our initiatives was about 30 days. You need to agree on a certain kilometer, a certain distance, and then actually achieve that over a period of 30 days. So there are people who've participated in that. So I think clearly, that whole aspect of discipline is great. Training is much wider. So where I'd leave to the other panelists to comment on is, if there is someone who is wanting a regular training online, that's a different aspect. But when it comes to running, I think, providing them apps, providing them devices, providing them various tech platforms so that they are able to go out there, regularly run, record their distances, record their times, at the end of it, get some meaningful analysis. Because again, the nature of a runner, or at least one part of the segment, is a runner who's very goal oriented. This is what I want to achieve in the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, etc. And that's the best way to do it, to be honest. And then, use technology to be able to give you the data points on whether you're getting there.
And so far, how important have you found the social media aspect of these running apps? How important are they? How important is it for runners to be connected to each other, to track each other's performances?
The running is a sport which of course, at one level binds people together, and of course, post pandemic, you'll see large numbers of people running together as well. But it's equally about, like you asked, sharing your data. It's a matter of pride. If you achieve a certain personal best, as we call it in running terminology, if you've achieved a sub 2 for a 21 kilometer, etc., you want to share it with people. I think social media has played a significant role to be able to have people go out there and say, here's my goal, this is what my timing was, here's how I trained, this is the sort of discipline I followed, this is the kind of nutrition and diet routines that I followed. And social media, digital, clearly enables that, amplifies that.
There are a few questions that are coming in about rental spaces. I suppose they're from people who own fitness centers. So I'll just read out the first one. It says, what should big setups who have large floor spaces and rents and electricity bills and salaries to pay do? should they change or pivot their business models? And what customizations should be done on their part to survive this phase?
I mean, I guess, Salvation, I can just, throw in a little bit of what we have done. There is, I guess, no right or wrong, because I'll tell you, the one thing that works here is how you really discuss this with your landlord, right? Because we've seen that we have obviously centers in different cities, and they all work differently, right? So the first thing we did was obviously talk to the landlord and see how we can come to like an understanding where we probably don't pay for a while, or we pay a lot lesser while we're shut, or while we're still trying to build the whole business back. And some of them were amazing and agreed to give us that time. Some of them did not, right? The other approach that we had was also doing the franchise model, because there were these individuals who were also interested and reaching out to kind of start off their own center, or rather join with another name in the fitness space. So we in fact started the whole franchise model post the pandemic, or rather as soon as we reopened, because until pre-COVID we did not have the franchise model. Everything was really company owned, and the franchise model has just started, and I must say it's doing quite well. A lot of the two-tier cities also, where we actually shut down centers, are now open because of the franchise options given out. So one of the answers is, of course, apart from negotiate with your landlord, you can actually see if someone wants to co-own it or someone wants to franchise own it, and then you kind of share the load to some extent, right? Yeah, that's something that I can advise, but Sarvesh probably has some.
Well, I mean, similar lines, because I think when you're running a brick and mortar space, so to call it, your large fixed expenses will fall under two buckets. One is your rent, second is your salary. So it's really about how you give confidence to both your landlord and your employees that we are in this for the long run and we will definitely fight back. So more than me and Shweta telling what we did, you all need to be confident that yes, even after I do this, I will survive after 6 months, because it's not that whether it's CureFit or Sarva or Diva, we're seeing 80% occupancy from day one, right? It's going to take time for it to get to pre-COVID levels. Yes, it's encouraging, it's heartwarming to see people coming in, etc. It's positive, but it's definitely, I mean, at least for us, it's definitely not pre-COVID times at all. But we had the capacity, the kind of what do you call the strength and willingness to go and tell the landlord, hey, listen, you know what, we'll definitely come back. And because uh, you need two hands to clap, right? We can't tell them, hey, listen, please waive off rent for like 6 months and then I'll come back in December, and then say, listen, I'm going to come out in January, because then they've lost 6 months. You've not given them also a long rope. So I think it's a two-way communication, both with your team and your what do you say, landlord. But with your team, I think what could be interesting is for you to really rethink grounds up. Who do you really need? How many people do you really need, etc. You can get a certain number of people for a certain number of time and then have the other person come after like 3 months, 4 months, etc. So it's really communication. I think one thing that people did well, who are in a good space, is people who communicated well with three people: one with their landlords, two with their employees, and three with their consumers. If you've done these three well, you're in a good space. But if you've not done these three well, you will have to face brands from different people, right? I mean, it's not that we were perfect. We had our own shortfalls and shortcomings, and very, very open about it. There's no problem. But these are the three things that one needs to do. But more than these three things, you need to probably introspect and understand how much long can I kind of survive the pandemic. I mean, if you have a fitness center, would you have the capitalization with you to kind of, even after doing all of this, how much long rope can you give yourself and the landlord and everybody else?
And I hope that answers your questions. There's also another question on the efficiency of digital workouts, because I think people have this issue that they start to plateau after 3-4 months. That is one person's issue, and another person is saying that they're afraid of not getting proper guidance online, and that might end up in injuries. So, Shweta, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, that's a very fair point, because there is only so much connection, right, through digital. So okay, let's talk about the injury part first. When you do a group class, obviously the trainer cannot give you all the attention possible, right? So the first thing is to see what is this group ratio, right? If it's one trainer versus 10 students, 20 students, 30 students, or 100 students, right? If you are if you're very new to fitness, I would say, choose to do a personal training session to begin with, and then once you know that you've understood your body, you understand movement principles, you can probably graduate to like some group workouts. But otherwise, if you feel confident that you can kind of scale it on your own here and there, then yes, go for group workouts right from the beginning. But a simple way to avoid these kind of little injuries or small or big injuries is, of course, start with personal training. And there are plenty of personal training options online. Choose the right trainer, of course, with experience, with qualification and all of that. And that's one advice for avoiding any sorts of injuries, right? And then later you move on to group X. About plateau, right? It can happen not just in digital world, it happens in the offline world as well, right? And to everybody, like all of us go through the plateau mode. It really is about how you plan your workout. When you pretty much do the same thing over and over again, your body will hit that stagnancy, right? Because you're like, okay, the body's going to be like, I'm used to this. Can you do something else for me to be challenged? So that's what plateau is. So whether you're doing it online or offline, you need to mix your workouts well. There has to be yoga, there has to be cardio. Okay, cardio can be running, cardio can be dancing, cardio can be, so many things, right? There has to be strength training. Strength can be body weight, strength can be weightlifting. That's a choice you make, right? But if you don't kind of mix and match, don't break the monotony, don't break a routine a little bit, you will plateau at some point. And it's a common thing that every human body goes through, which is why even when you eat food, when you're on a certain kind of a meal plan or a diet plan to achieve a certain goal, even they have certain breaks given. Like sometimes your nutritionist will probably tell you, hey, just go eat a biryani, break the plateau, right? On for 1 week, don't follow anything. So breaking a plateau is something that you should either consult with a nutritionist or your trainer, but it's totally possible, and it is not restricted to online or offline workouts. It happens to all, right? I mean, Sarva, Ashish can add if
Yeah, no, I
whatever
think,
I've missed. But
I think you've covered everything in terms of both plateauing and injury. And like Shweta rightly said, I think everything will stem from what you would want, right? Because in a digital world, your options are limitless. You've got a plethora of options, whether it is yoga, meditation, dance, running, virtual yoga, virtual strength training, anything. There is a whole lot of things. So one thing is you need to be curious as an individual as to how you can excite your lives itself, right? Options are limitless, options are endless. There is enough and more options out there. But yes, finding a right coach, finding a right guide is not very easy. But there are, you have friends, you've got a lot of these review systems in place right now where you will definitely know that this person, he is doing a phenomenal job in terms of whatever results you're wanting to achieve and attain. So I think it's all in the individual's hands. And like Shweta rightly said, right? Even nutritionists say that, hey, listen, go have a pizza, biryani, etc. And that's the whole reason, is to make it fun, make it exciting, because it's not about, at the end of the day, there's a very thin line between being disciplined and being like OCD of sorts. You need to let loose. You need to be in the balance. That's why, like I said, right, everything needs to have a balance, and you know it better than anybody else, which is the individual knows it better than anybody else. Ashish
yeah,
can
I mean, I
comment.
think something, yeah, very quickly, I think something that a mistake that most of us do, right? We really stick to a sport or fitness that we thoroughly enjoy, right? And it's obviously a factor of the mind dominating completely, and then we forget that the body needs more than one type, right? Like, in running, I know a lot of people, and Ashish can definitely correct me, who only only choose to run, and they, sometimes end up getting certain injuries because they have ignored the strength factor, right? But I'm sure Ashish will agree that a little bit of strength training involved can take your running for years to come injury free, right? Same thing, like even we advise everybody to incorporate yoga on a regular basis, weekly basis, right? And that can help you really avoid injuries in everything else you do, and it's a workout by itself. But yeah, you need to kind of really do different things, let your body, get used to different things. That's when you really don't hit a plateau.
I would agree with that, Shweta. I would absolutely agree with that. And I just wanted to take a slightly different take, and a slightly different thread, which is, I think, this is also an opportunity for content owners, for tech platforms, etc., to innovate and build solutions in a manner where they are able to address that consumer need. Because look, what's happened is, of course, digital transformation is not something that started 8 months ago. It started much earlier. The pandemic may have accelerated things, but in this last 8-10 months, a lot of things have just happened because they were the low hanging fruit. But how can now, content owners go out there and sort of say, look, here is where my customer need is. Here is what my consumers are looking for. This is the sort of differentiation that I need to take to them. This is the manner in which we will provide service to them. I think it really requires a lot of us to do very deep thinking and, address those concerns and needs of consumers.
And speaking of the needs of consumers, yeah, like you said, Shweta, that at-home workouts are here to stay for a longer while. So, do you think that is also giving rise to us, also giving a boost to the market of at-home equipment, something that's easy, portable, and can be carried? That the same stands for yoga as well. The props needed. Do you think that?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I think that market is again going to be another interesting market to get into. Although it's a bit tricky because, like I said, we have this country where fitness was a luxury. Now it's slowly becoming a necessity. People are getting into online, getting into offline, both. So a lot of them have just started. The number of people who are in the advanced workout category are still a small number. And the people who use equipments, dumbbells and kettlebells and barbells and different props of yoga, resistance bands and all that, are people who still fall into the advanced category. So while we have a lot of new people who've come in to try out fitness and to make that a habit, it's going to take a little while before they start investing, some amount of money and a corner of their house to stack these equipments, right? But for anyone who wants to start off, I think this is a good time to even look at kickstarting a business around equipments, because it's definitely here to stay. It may be slow compared to a lot of other things, but it's here to stay. Like people like all of us are obviously in the business, and we would pretty much keep every piece of equipment at home because we really know the need for it. But what I've also seen, Shweta, is that in on our CureFit app, we've now put up equipments, right? And we put up the basic stuff, nothing fancy. We've put up dumbbells, kettlebells, and certain types of bands, resistance bands, simple stuff, and it doesn't take too much space in the house. And it's amazing to see that it's actually selling quite fast, right? And this is again mostly by the advanced customers who used to be doing offline and are not still pivoted offline, and they're still online. But it is selling, and not at a rapid pace, but it is selling at a good pace. So yes, I think Sarvesh can obviously talk about how the yoga props work, but yoga is like, you can do it without anything as well. That's how amazing it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like she said, I think for yoga you need a 3 feet by 6 feet mat, and that's about that is what you need. Of course, from a Sarva standpoint, we do 25 different styles of yoga, and in that about 10, 11 types of yogas are with props. So our consumers have continuously asked us to kind of sell these props and kind of give them these props, etc. But I think it like Shweta said, the kind of people who love to buy these props and stack it in their home and kind of have it, etc., is fairly minimal in the country. Only reason being because they realize that, okay, when I go to a yoga studio, I'll have it. And what's interesting that's happened is in the lockdown, people have started giving alternatives, right? Instead of a yoga strap, they've started using like very nice towels, and they've been seeing really interesting stuff that's coming out. So it is a very niche market, but I think eventually, like in the West, in the US, everybody, it's like a kind of a cool thing to own a yoga brick. It's a cool thing to have a yoga wheel, right? In terms of whatever, like we've been asked, our aerial yoga cloths are pretty cool, and a lot of people have asked us, can you sell these to us? But I'm like, okay, if I sell it to you, where are you going to have it at home? Like, you need to have like a free space. It needs to have like enough space to oscillate, in all four directions. No, it's not that. But I think it is an interesting business. I think, and it is when you productize a hardware like Pelotons of the world, right? From cycling to content to what it is done, the climbers of the world, and so on and so forth. So when you physically feel something and then you have content in addition to integrate with it, there is nothing like it in terms of, because for example, Ashish will know runners need to breathe very differently. There have been a lot of running kind of masks that come out right now, because it requires short distance runners require a different kind of breathing techniques. Long distance runners require a completely different kind of breathing technique. And yoga talks about all of that. We've spoken about this multiple times internally. Can we kind of come up with a different kind of a mask and something with the whole breathometers of sort, etc. It is very interesting. But from a Sarva standpoint, our focus right now is to deliver great quality yoga content.
And before we wrap up the session, there's one thing that I did want to circle back to, which you spoke about, Sarvesh, at the beginning of the session, and that was uh, holistic fitness. Do you guys, and that's something that Cult also had quite focused on much before the pandemic. Uh, so, do you guys think that we've come to an age where a fitness center is not just about giving you workout tips or training there, but also it'll have nutritionists on board, it'll have psychologists on board, life coaches? Do you think uh, we can see a center which combines all of this in one place? Do you think we see more of those?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Savesh wanted to take this. I'll start. So, even pre-COVID, right, we had the same setup that we do today, which is our CAFET centers doing, basic medical stuff, diagnostics and all of that, and catering to nutritionists, certain lifestyle diseases. Then we had MindFit, which was, of course, yoga, and we had therapy and meditation, of course. And then you have Cult and Eat and all that. And I think therapy was obviously accessed, but it wasn't at a great pace. And we all know that people just don't go and seek therapy, especially in our country, right? It's still a little bit of a stigma, or whatever we want to call it. But I've noticed that the MindFit, right, our therapy and all of that has literally grown 5x through the pandemic. And now, of course, we are doing it now through, again, Zoom and our app and all of that, and it's all online, no physical centers, but it has grown 5x. Like, people are actually coming out, and the pandemic has obviously turned things around, and a lot of us sitting at home, and it's just making us a little sad, a little morose. And some of us have also dealt with depression. Yes, so it has truly grown 5x. So we understood that this is something that has to be given out there a lot more, and people need it. Second thing is the CareFit part of it. Now, the physical centers are not there anymore, but we've also seen, despite the physical centers of CareFit not being there, the online has picked up 10x, right? People are actually, and also because there is a lot of fear, right? I have a cold, I have a cough, I have a small little thing happening with the body, I want to reach out to a doctor. So we've onboarded a lot of doctors on the CareFit online platform, and we've seen a growth of 10x in the last few months, right? So the medical part is actually picking up. Meditation, therapy, all of that is picking up. And I think just that being there along with fitness and food and nutrition is just perfect. And that's what you need. It's not just about the body, right? The mind plays such an integral role. So if you have your food, exercise, your mental well-being, your hydration, sleep, all of these five things covered, and it's balancing out, then you're really on the right path. And if it means talking to someone and constantly, so be it. But at least you have that person to talk to all the time. So yeah, the care and everything is doing brilliant, and I think that is also here to stay and pick up.
Which perhaps means that also a new market that we need to look at right now is the senior citizen market, right? Considering most gyms they can't physically go right now due to the rules, but also now this online thing also opens up access for a lot of senior citizens. Is that something that you've seen in your experience?
I Yes. So what we also did, Shweta, is we don't have a lot of workouts online for senior citizens, but we actually put up online workouts for them, right? And this happened pretty much at the beginning itself. Like I think about April, May is when we introduced. So we introduced online workouts for senior citizens, and we did a lot of programs for children also. Uh, well, I mean, we don't see that there's a huge traction. The age group that we've seen is really between 25 and 35. They're like the people who are consuming the online workouts the most. And if you look at the gender, it's really 50-50, between men and women. But otherwise, max consumption is 25 to 35. But yes, we've prepared content for senior citizens as well on the app, because obviously they're not people who you would want to step out to a gym and all of that, right? And from a safety angle. So yes, we do have content for them.
Okay. Uh, any concluding remarks from Ashish, Sarvesh, anything that you would like to leave us with?
I think this is this has been a year of lots of learning, as I said earlier. I think the health and wellness companies that have really, leveraged the last 7-8 months, and of course, pandemic was not good, but if we've been able to create any solutions, any platforms, it's made us think very hard about our relevance to our consumers, our business models, the way to go to market, etc. And I'm sure we'll all come out of it much, much stronger. I think we'll all come out of it with our businesses, hopefully in some shape or form, coming back to normalcy, but a new layer getting added to it. That's the optimism that, we are with.
True.
No, absolutely. I think, like I've said it earlier as well, I think three things that 2020 has probably taught us is: one, it has taught us to fight; second, it has taught us to accept; and third, it has taught us to be grateful. And it's been a year of a lot of learnings, and more importantly, it has made us all realize that less is more. So in terms of health and wellness, or whatever it is, right? Whether it's our family and friends and whatever, it's taught us less is more. And I hope that this kind of mentality of being grateful and kind of making the best of whatever we have kind of stays on. And it's a learning that I think nature has given all of us. Again, I'm sorry, I talk a lot like a yogi. I've been doing it for 22 years, so I don't think that part of me can be changed right now. But I think one for everybody, just keep going. My Guruji says, as long as you're breathing, you don't have to worry. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. As long as you're breathing, you got to take care of that breath, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
mind and the body. So yeah, so just make it a routine in
Yeah,
whatever way
yeah,
possible. Just
exactly. I
move
mean,
more often.
correct. Self-care and self-love is, I think everything begins there. I don't think charity starts
Exactly.
from home, it starts from within. If you know that in flights, people say, when there is a turbulence, a mask will come, wear it for yourself first before even giving it to your child.
Yeah,
Of course, there is some scientific reason why that is said also, right? So if
correct.
self-care and self-love can be given a lot more importance than it used to be, and hopefully it doesn't need more pandemics for all of us to make us realize that. And yeah.
Mhm. True.
Sorry, I
Great.
realized I was muted. Yeah, thank you so much, all of you, for being here and sharing your insights. I hope it was useful to whoever attended the session. And all right, yeah, have a good day. Have a
Thank
good.
you, Shweta, for having us.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Yeah.
Shweta,
Thank you.
Shwetamdari. Thank you,
Thank you,
Ashish. Thank you
everyone.
to the
Yeah.
entire
Thank
team of
you.
Hindu.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarvesh.
Take care,
Thank
guys.
you.
Cheers.
Lovely
Thanks.
being here. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.